back to Awkward Insurance. Today we have an exciting announcement for our listeners. Awkward Insurance is thrilled to announce that we are heading back to the prestigious and exciting Insurtech Insights event in the heart of New York City on June 5th and 6th. As a special treat for our dedicated listeners, we are offering an exclusive registration discount code. Just use the code AWKWARDNYC in all caps. That's AWKWARDNYC in all caps at checkout, and you'll receive a whopping 50% off posted event prices for a single registration. It is our way of saying thank you for joining us on the awkward journey through the world of insurance. Ashley, what do you think we should capture at Insurtech Insights this year? Because we went last year and I think we got some amazing content, but we need some variety.
I mean, I'm looking at the agenda right now and I'm trying to figure out how I can maneuver my schedule so I can actually make it there, because there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot to capture. I can't even tell you one thing because there's like 10 places I want to be at one time, I feel like there.
It is hard. It feels like ADHD conference mode for sure when you want to be in this session and that session and then recording a podcast at the same time.
Exactly.
It's hard to choose. Oh my gosh. Better yet, honestly, we'd love for our listeners to send us what they'd like to hear in our interviews this year. So join us on the chats on Awkward Insurance Facebook page or message me directly from that page and we'll see what we can come up with. But let's talk and turn our attention to our incredible guest that's joining us for this special episode. I am extremely excited to welcome Megan Kaczynski, president of Insurtech Insights USA. Megan brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table, and we just can't wait to dive into some hopefully awkwardly yet enlightening conversations with her. And I don't know if we'll be able to beat last week's episode with Susan Etter. Megan, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to listen to it, but there are all kinds of words that my grandma taught me not to say in public in that episode. And I just spent the entire time giggling like a little schoolgirl.
I love it. Well, I am all things awkward. So I'll fit right in. And I just wanted to thank you guys. I mean, I think we first started talking before our June event last year, and you just brought so much energy and excitement, just podcasting live and having your presence there. We love having you guys there, and we can't wait for more of your listeners to join us in the Big Apple this June.
I am so excited, but I'm going to need you to talk to the city organizers and let them know to keep the smoke out of the city this year. I'm excited to come back, but I'm hoping not to die this year.
Well, I was with you on the top of the Inc. 48 Hotel, the rooftop, and it was like zombie apocalypse.
Right.
It was just insane. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
It really was. It was really crazy. Even at the ground level, like at times you couldn't see the building on the next corner.
Yeah.
Because the air was so thick and orange and brown. And,
yeah,
you know, me and my asthma, we thought we could make it without a mask. And I spent more money Ubering like 2 blocks from a hotel to the Insurtech Insights to stay out of it as much as I could.
I know. And for those that haven't been to the Javits, it's basically almost like a glass house. So you could just see that orange glow, you know, getting brighter and crazier. And, you know, the schools were closed and it was a real health issue.
It really was. Well, hopefully we won't have that happening again this year. So Megan has over 20 years of experience in global B2B or business-to-business media and conventions. She's focused on disruptive technologies, which is definitely a thing in the insurance realm. She is the former president of ITC, Insurtech Connect, current president of ITI, or Insurtech Insights USA, and she is the author of Insurtech Talk for Modern Insurance Magazine. So an official welcome to Awkward Insurance. I'm so happy to have you here today.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Share with us a little bit about your background and how you became the president of Insurtech Insights USA. And I really like this conversation because I just don't run into too many high-level female leaders in not only in our industry, but any industry for that matter.
It's a great question. So, you know, I'll tell you, I got into B2B media right after college, and I had a degree in English. So I thought, oh, I want to be a writer. And so I interviewed at United Business Media, and they were engaging with my personality, and they said, "You should really get into sales." And I said, "No, I'm a writer. I want to write and be a journalist for these electronics magazines at the time that you guys have." And they said, "No, you should really think about sales." And then I just said, "What does each pay?" And they showed me the editorial assistant's job and then the salesperson's job. And I'm like, okay, I'll just try sales.
It's a very relevant question.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just, and it was outside of my comfort zone. And I started in sales and I was working in the Silicon Valley in the electronic OEM market. This was the stage where everything was becoming smart: the smart home, the smart car, the smart computer. Airplanes were becoming smart. And so they're all fueled by microchips, microprocessors. And so it was a market that was skyrocketing. So I started in sales. And then shortly after that, I took over a division in the company in my 20s. I was so unprepared for that. But we were at the low end of the hockey stick and it exploded. And I took the business to Europe and to Asia, went back and forth all around the world, the brand called Embedded Systems. And then I got a call to take another business called Internet World, take over that business, which was located in Cleveland, Ohio, actually, the headquarters.
Okay.
But my brand, Internet World, was based in Connecticut. So I took that business over. This was when all businesses were becoming e-businesses, another massive disruption in the economy. And so I had, you guys were at the Javits, I had a trade show called Internet World, and we took over the entire Javits, the upstairs, the downstairs. It was 30,000 people. We filled every hotel room. And it was the same thing in LA. We had a West Coast version. So I was there for the high and then the crash. The high was a lot more fun, but it was a great experience nonetheless. And then throughout my career, I just sort of am attracted to technologies that are transforming traditional industries. So, I've worked in healthcare, life sciences, biotech, nanotechnology, esports, video gaming is a disruption of the entertainment industry.
I was watching a YouTube of you on that earlier today.
Oh, you saw that one? Oh, that's
I did.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, like that, I had a blast doing that. Esports are, for those that don't know, they're competitive video games as a spectator sport. And all sports have an e version as well. Like the NHL has their own game, the NFL, Major League Baseball. And when you watch those games, you actually feel like for hockey that you're at Madison Square Garden watching a Rangers game. It's insane. So to see the magic of that and how that's disrupting everything, you guys heard of the video game Fortnite?
Yeah, my son is almost 7 and starting to say that word a lot.
I have to say, I've never seen anything like it in my life. And 20,000 people fill the Arthur Ashe Stadium. 20,000 people are watching a video game on a big screen and like cheering, and the crowd's going wild. And it's just, and there's billions of views on Twitter and YouTube and Twitch. And
that's insane to
totally
think about.
Insane. That, I think I reached next level cool mom status when I ran esports. That was a lot of fun. But when you tie it back to insurance, these competitive gamers, they're business owners. Some are big business owners. Like some of them make, just millions of dollars streaming. And so like identity theft, there's a whole different layer of insurance on top of those types of jobs, right? The gig economy, they're like the epitome of the gig economy. So that was really fun. And then I got tapped to run ITC, and I worked with the founder, Jay Weintraub, who is brilliant, and, helped integrate that acquisition into the parent company, the new owner, and scaled it. And it was a great experience. And when people ask, why did I leave? It's because I fell in love with insurance. I really fell in love with the industry. And again, going back to multi-platform media background in digital publishing and, all sorts of layers of media, Insurtech Insights is a content producer. We put out content every single day. We have over 400,000 in our network. And I was just really excited about, having 100% focus on insurance and Insurtech. I attended their event in London a few years ago, and I'm like, there's something magical about what they do. And so I was really delighted when they asked me to help them scale in the United States.
I was excited when they asked you to help them scale in the United States. It's a great event. Ashley, just side note, next webinar Wednesday, gaming is a business.
Really?
Let's turn that into a webinar.
Oh, yeah?
And then we can focus on the homeowners policy and the business exclusions of just that gaming is a business. All that equipment in their mother's
So wait, are you going to build it for me? Are you going to do it?
No, maybe.
I thought this would be an interesting panel too. 60% of the revenues from esports, they come from the brand activations. And insurers have been some of the earlier brand activations. For example, State Farm was the first to sponsor a major streamer. His name is Dr. Lupo, and they closed that deal at my show. And so State Farm is like sponsoring these streamers, and they're in the games now. It was like Rocket Mortgage and, a lot of like Coca-Cola, a lot of the major F&B brands, but also luxury brands, Porsche, Louis Vuitton, they're all in the games now. So it's an interesting thing when insurers want to reach the next generation of policyholders. Where are they? They're not really watching TV. They're hanging out with their friends, doing happy hours, watching the games or playing the games. So it's a whole nother layer, I think, of content that we could tap into as well.
I love it. Megan, one thing that you brought up was that you kind of entered into a leadership position in your 20s, and you specifically stated that you were unprepared for that. What are some of the lessons that you've learned in your career that, I don't know, evolved that for you from when you were, I don't know, what was it like to be 20 and in a leadership position? I remember what it was like to be 20 and the manager of a restaurant and not yet legally capable of selling alcohol. That was like the weirdest situation I was ever put in.
Yeah.
But what's that been like for you? What have you learned along the way?
Oh, I have so many stories. I never felt ready when I got promoted. I just got promoted. So I just like, I just became one of those people like, throw me in the deep end and I'll figure it out. And, one story I love to tell, I was probably like 24 or 25 running a division. And then my business was exploding so much and it was becoming global. And when I had the opportunity to take it to Japan, my partner and I communicated all through email. He was in Tokyo. There was, we didn't have Zoom or Google Meet or anything like that. It was all through email. So I took a major delegation to Tokyo. It was the largest electronic event in Japan. And I had a huge pavilion, and I had in my delegation all the big movers and shakers from Intel and AMD and Texas Instruments that I brought with me. So when I show up, as a 25-year-old young woman, they had a ribbon cutting ceremony, and I was invited as a foreign dignitary to be a part of it. All kinds of pomp and circumstance. And I show up, and the line of gentlemen just like stared at me like they're looking at a ghost. And I honestly think they thought I was a man. And I show up as, not just a woman, just like a young, 25-year-old. And so they all shook each other's hands and they didn't shake my hand. I'm like putting out my hand, and then I'm trying to do the bows. Someone taught me how, we honor each other by doing the bow, and they just sort of brushed me off. And so we cut the ribbon. I feel my cheeks like getting so hot, and I just feel myself getting smaller and smaller and almost like melting to the ground. It was such an awkward moment. And then, we had a phenomenally successful event, and I gave a talk. And so I had a translator who was a woman who we bonded, we became fast friends. So I stood up in front of, almost all men of a different culture that didn't speak my language. And I gave a keynote on the North American semiconductor market. And they were on the edge of their seats because we were the hub of the market. And so then they paid attention to me. And some of them did shake my hand, at the end, but I was not what they expected. And those moments are like totally life transforming. You could pick me up, and if you could plot me into that environment and I made it through alive, I could do anything. So as hard as that was, it gave me confidence that I could kind of power through any kind of situation like that.
Yeah, I love that story. Very visual too. And when you said you were getting hot or you could feel yourself getting warm and you were shrinking down, I'm like, I have been there.
Yeah.
And
I know. I feel like we just went on a roller coaster. Like I was just like feeling all of those emotions with her. And I'm like, that is so horrible that you had to go through that and that we have, there are people out there that still act that way today. It's so sad. And then all of a sudden, you know your stuff. And if you didn't have that chance to do that keynote in front of them, they would have never known that. And it's just so frustrating that we still have to deal with that in this day and age.
Totally. And honestly, besides the translator, I had one or two women in my delegation, but it was just a sea of men. So it was just the first time I felt like I usually didn't pay attention to that, but I'm like, it was so obvious that, there was a difference, but it was life transforming, honestly.
it sounds honestly terrifying. And I don't see how it couldn't be like
Yeah.
transforming after that. I'm sure there's plenty who have experienced that in one way or another. You have a passion for women in leadership. Tell me about kind of where you stand on that today and maybe what your perch is within
Hmm.
that particular subject.
Yeah, I'll tell a couple stories. You can tell I'm a storyteller. I gave a talk recently to my former company, the entire company, during Women's History Month, just about my career. And I'll never forget, I have two children, 15 months apart in age. And I was working at a company at a very senior level at this point. So I had them so close in age. And I remember one woman just pulled me aside and said, "Don't take too much time off because it'll be really hard to come back." And she scared me a little bit that I couldn't take time off, like, whatever, take the least amount of maternity leave. And I did. I'm like, oh, I can never come back. I can never come back. And I ended up taking the time off, like leaving the company and taking time when my kids were little. And at the same time, my brother, who were 13 months apart in age, he was diagnosed with cancer. So I was like his main power of attorney. I handled all of his affairs, and he was in remission for 7 years. But like I just was in this crazy place where I had toddlers, and then I also had to take care of my brother, and I just took the time. I had to manage some family businesses, and I took years off. And so I came back at a senior level. And what I tell people, it's like nothing really has changed other than that now I have to wear reading glasses. I'm a few years older, but you can come back, and a career path does not have to be linear. You can take pivots, different directions, and it's all okay. And like I tell people, if you took time off, if you left a job because it was toxic and bad for your mental health, I respect that. You shouldn't be embarrassed by a gap in your resume if you took a different direction. So I think as women, we need to stop apologizing if we do take different directions for family or for whatever other reasons. And that fear I felt, you can never come back or it'd be really hard to come back. It's different now. And as women, we need to support women who make different choices in their lives that aren't the traditional path.
Oh my God, right? Ashley, does this not sound like leadership 2.0?
I was just gonna say, does this sound familiar when she said it doesn't have to be linear? Because it was like we just had our inaugural women's leadership event here in Ohio a few weeks ago, and I'm biased because I ran it, but when I tell you, I could not have asked for it to go better. Like even the things that went wrong, even the quote unquote negative feedback wasn't negative. It was like stuff I was already thinking, oh, we should have done it this way anyway. It was just incredible. And the first presentation, we were doing a lot of like little workshop type things, and it was about the trajectory of your profession and how like men typically go like they graduate college, they get the first job, theirs just goes like straight up like this, but women go up and then they have to stop and care for children or care for family members. But the whole point of it was it's okay to not want to consistently go up, because just because you're not going up in the ranks of what you're doing,
Yeah.
staying lateral and doing lateral moves might be what you want. And it's okay to want that. And it's okay. I hate saying it's okay to not want more, because it doesn't mean you don't want more. You want something different. So yeah, as soon as you were saying that, I'm like, all right, this is literally just what our entire conference was about. It was fantastic.
It sounds like a great conference. It really does. And I guess like I feel like when people have to explain their resumes, like, oh, and then I took that, like, don't ever apologize. Like, claim it. It's your life.
Own it.
Choice you made. Claim it and own it. Right?
It's a new tagline here at the National Alliance, own your potential. That's anything. And Ashley, just when you were talking about, what we learned or talked about at the leadership conference, how, a male's trajectory may be more linear. I think more and more people are starting to recognize not just females, but males too. It's okay to live and work.
Totally.
It's okay for your life not to be completely and totally consumed by work.
Exactly.
I think women need to also be like, women need to be careful about what they say to one another, especially, a lot of times I can brush things off, but if somebody means a lot to me and is very important to me, and they say something like, you can't do it this way, you have to do it this way or it won't work, I will take that to heart. Like if they say, your hair just looks terrible like that. And if it's somebody that I really respect and they said that to me, I'd be like, all right, I better go get it fixed. So for someone to come up to you and say, don't take all that time off.
Yeah.
If it was somebody that I respected in the industry or a friend of mine that said that, I'd be like, oh man, and I'd panic. I think people don't realize sometimes what they say and the effect that it can have moving forward, even when they're coming from a good place.
Right. And I think we need to lead by example. And, I had young women that had children that did decide to take time off, or if they took a different direction, it's just, you can always come back is what I tell them. Take that fear out of it.
Ashley, to that I say, get a healthy dose of demand avoidance or oppositional defiance disorder. And when somebody tells you not to do, or you can't do something, you'll always go in the opposite direction anyways.
I already do. Well, most of the time I do that.
Let's turn our attention a little bit to the conference setting. So let's talk about Insurtech Insights a little bit. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation of women in leadership. I'm really interested to hear some of your insights about Insurtech Insights.
Yeah, for sure.
And what I see right now, I've gone to the ITI event. This will be my third year back, second year in, I guess, the media role, if you will, with Awkward Insurance. Some of what I saw the struggle with when I first attended, I was just an attendee, brought my little mic on my phone and walked around, got a ton of information back. And I heard a lot from CEOs or tech developers that were like, we need some education for the folks that are developing the tech. They are developing it, but they don't know anything about insurance. And if they just knew a little bit, maybe that might help, niche it down just a little bit more. And now what I'm hearing a lot of is that the tech is being developed. There's a lot that's out there, but it's kind of a slow going adoption for who it was built for, the end user or the agency. There's some massive adoption in some areas, but in some other areas, there's a slower adoption, particularly on the independent agent channel side.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks a lot to the demographics on the independent agent side, but we'll stay away from that topic for a minute. When I attend these events and I hear more about that, and I've seen more in terms of panels on the internet, what am I thinking of all of a sudden?
Webinars.
Webinars. Thank you. Why was that such a
hard thing? I wasn't sure if that's the word. You were like so hesitant that I'm like, it can't be webinars.
You just lose your words sometimes, and then it becomes harder and harder to get that word back. So in terms of webinars, or just panels that are done in live sessions on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, and I'm seeing more involvement from the independent agent side, just saying that it's missing the boat or whatever in an age of digital connectivity. And knowing that some of these independent agent higher ups, decision makers, are probably not coming to these events because these are usually CEOs or venture capitalists, investors, tech developers looking to gain more insights about developing their tech. So the end user is missing in order to see what the technology can do for them. What role do you feel conferences like Insurtech Insights could play for them if they would just keep their head in the door a little bit?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I totally agree with you. It's definitely needed and definitely necessary. And we're a content provider, so we've doubled the amount of content that you'll see at Insurtech Insights this coming June on the distribution side. So we double the amount of content. We're working with associations too, like the Council of Agents and Brokers. They signed on as a partner as well, just so we're, from an advisory perspective, what are the hottest topics? What are the pain points so we can address it in this greater distribution focus? And then just, finding those funnels where like you guys have, you're a funnel for us in terms of bringing your community, just to bring those agents and those brokers to the show and, have a home for them and give them the information they need on the technologies that could really, really change the way they work, for sure.
So speaking of that and saying, like, you use our community to get the word out there, and obviously there's other end users that go there. Is there for people listening saying, well, how do I know if I should be going to this as an end user? Like, do you guys have an ideal characteristic set of end users that it would make sense for them to come?
And, I think, like, I'll tell you typically what the demographic is. It's about 40% on the carrier side. Agents and brokers, again, it's smaller, but it's growing. I would say like around 10 to 15%. The rest are made up of entrepreneurs and startups and investors. So, it's really a combination of those demographic and solutions providers, of course. You see them in the expo hall, but you'll see them attending management consultants as well. We do extensive surveying. We want to know what kind of content that they want to consume. We put out content daily, as you guys know, through Insurtech Insights and the curated newsletters. We're like on the pulse of the daily news. So it's really listening to them, making a home for them. It's electrifying, the expo hall. It'll be a lot bigger. It's growing every single year. But just really sort of connecting the dots through the ecosystem of that demographic pool that I told you about. And, it's interesting, like AI, I was talking to someone about some climate tech stuff in products that are interesting for AI as it relates to risk mitigation. That covers the whole chain. Like, how can we mitigate our risk from a property and casualty standpoint, but also like life and health if there's injuries, or claims or a legal part to it. Like there's a whole value chain there that needs to be addressed. So we only have 2 days. So we try to like put spotlights and highlights and deep dives and there's a whole team that really goes deep into the content curation. And what we don't hit at the conference, we cover every single day and through the executive spotlights and interviews and stories that we post across our platform.
In some early conversations prior to this recording, you mentioned that you had a high interest in new technologies for predicting and preventing in life and health. Explain that. What are you so interested about, or what are you hopeful for in that area?
Yeah, I love that question, Dustin. I have a background in holistic health. I've launched businesses that are still going on conferences today. And so, the technology is really catching up. I'll give you a couple examples. Are you familiar with the Grail? Grail is a health tech company that detects cancer markers for 50 different cancers with one blood draw. And it's amazing. And so Grail has, the first time I started studying Grail, they formed a major announcement partnership with Munich Re. And since then, John Hancock, Mass Mutual, they'll be announcing. And, it's sort of like when the average doctor tests for 5 cancers, the big 5, they detect markers for all the orphan malignancies and things like that, but they catch it early enough so it can be stopped, mitigated, in remission. The commercial benefit to the life insurer is longer longevity of the policyholder. So it's really win-win. Like it's inspiring healthy, happier, longer living people, but there's a commercial benefit for the life insurer as well. And so Grail will be at the show and they'll be either telling you.
Marking that one down.
Yeah. I can certainly make introductions. They'd be a great interview as well. They were named Fortune magazine's top companies changing the world in 2023. They're really inspiring to talk to. And so they'll be there. We're working out a plan to even do allowing some of those that are appropriate for the test, that you can actually take the test. They have a mobile testing lab on site. So that'll be really amazing. I love the sort of gamification. We're talked about games of your taking charge and being more engaged with your health. So like John Hancock's Vitality program is a perfect example of that, where, you start taking command of your health, either losing weight or regulating your blood pressure. Then you get you can lower your policy. You can lower your premiums. And so I feel like that's a win-win too. Healthier, happier people, lower claims, hopefully over time. So I think those technologies are really fascinating to watch and to track, but definitely check out Grail. They'll have a very big presence at ITI this year.
I love that. I'm definitely checking that out for sure.
Yeah.
I think that would be a great conversation to have for sure. Let's start to wrap up just a little bit. I have a question for you. Can you think back to a time when you thought maybe your knowledge wasn't up to par, you have more to learn? What resources do you use to keep your knowledge there and happening? Because as I've heard you speak today, you have got a very vast span of knowledge in so many different areas. And I'm just thinking, I'm just trying to stay relevant in insurance, much less Fortnite and esports and, and everything. There are some words that you used earlier when you were talking about being in Japan. I was like, she sounds like she knows what she's talking about, but please don't ask me to make sure that was accurate.
No, and I feel like I'm always trying to keep up, number one, but I do feel like I approach a new subject very academically. I like to research, and I love talking to people. So I stumbled into this. It's sort of my side hustle. It's a relationship between Modern Insurance Magazine and Insurtech Insights. So every other month, I curate 6 or so interviews. So I talk to CEOs and I study them. I study, interviews they've given, positions, and then I interview them. And so I'm going through this intellectual process of preparing, researching, studying, and then I just love to talk to people. And then I curate that into a piece of content for the magazine. So I guess the short answer is I approach it academically. I'm intellectually curious. I love absorbing knowledge. I'm a podcast junkie. I love your podcast, but I always feel like I'm keeping up. I'm just treading water, trying to, do it.
Perfect description. I feel like I am treading water all the time.
I mean, I did take an MIT class, and I recommend this. It was executive education, AI implications for business strategy. And I did it over the holidays. So it was just I had a thesis. I applied AI to so many different layers of my fictional business. And that was a phenomenal exercise. So I feel like if I launch a small business, I have these tools and this knowledge, that I could apply. But anyway, the short answer is I try to approach it academically as someone with ADD.
As someone that goes, ooh, shiny object.
Exactly. I'm researching and then, ooh, what's over there or there?
I love it. Thank you so much for being on Awkward Insurance today. Is there anything that we left uncovered that you'd just like to say, or a small little nugget of information that you hope our listeners take away from this conversation?
It's just my pleasure to welcome you guys back to the show. If any of the listeners have any questions, feel free to shoot me a DM over LinkedIn, or would love to see them there as well. It's going to be it's a total takeover of Manhattan. Insurtech takes over. So we're excited. We're super excited to see everyone.
I'm so excited. I think we've got a lot of tricks and plans up our sleeve for this year. So I'm excited to be there once more. Thanks again for being here. Ash, thanks for being here. Toodles, everybody.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for hanging out and listening to another Awkward Insurance Conversation.
If you haven't already, be sure to join the Awkward Insurance Facebook community. We have an amazing group of people on there.
And for more episodes, head over to the National Alliance website at scic.com. Now go forth and be awkward. Toodles!
That's awkward.